Hello, it's time for my weekly, what's it called again? I'm too fat for that story. Apparently, I'm too fat to remember what the name of my story is. Today's story comes from way back in the 60s when I was a young child. I think I was about 5, maybe 6 years old. And this story was about me and my sister Marilyn and my oldest brother Warren. And I'm calling this story The Flying Sister. Way back when I was a young child, we lived in a house out in a place called Pecan Groves or Pecan Groves, however the heck you all say it. We say pecan. And we lived in this big old piece of land. My grandfather had this enormous house that was just a beautiful southern, almost plantation style. And we lived in the back in a pretty nice house, but not as nice as my grandfather's. And we had a lot of land, a lot of pecan trees. And in our backyard, we had a wonderful pecan tree that was very old, that had these graceful hanging limbs. And on this particular afternoon, my sister and I were sitting on the picnic table watching my brother and his friends while they were playing on the tree. Now, my brother was a good 10 years older than me, so they were teenagers and we were just young children, my sister and I. Marilyn's 2 years older than me, but she was not ever fat. She was not ever plump in the slightest. She was always very skinny, very thin. And I was the fat one. And my brother Warren did not like me very much. And he was always picking on me and making fun of me because I was fat, which was really strange because of the boatload of children. There were 7 of us. The two of us that were pretty hefty and pretty fat was me and my brother. So for my brother to pick on me, you would think he would have been a little more merciful and a little more gracious to his little poor little sister who was a fatty, but he was not. He was cruel to me. And I think the reason he was that way was because he figured now I've got somebody that I can pick on because he'd been picked on so much. But I didn't appreciate it nonetheless. Well, on this particular day, he and his friends were playing on this tree, the pecan tree, and two of them would pull the limb down, and the other would jump on the limb, hang on to the branches, and then they would let the limb go, and it would just go flying up in the air, and they'd ride it like a wild horse, bobbity, 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 until the tree stopped moving. Then he would get off, and wow, what a ride, man, that kind of thing. And then another one would get on. And I was sitting there and I was saying, "Oh, please let me ride. Please let me ride. I want to ride too. Me next, me next. And pick me, pick me." But he would not do it. He came over to me and he says, "No, fatty, you too fat to get on a limb. You think we're crazy? You probably break the limb." Is the kind of stuff he was saying to me. And it really hurt my feelings and it made me start to cry. And well, I don't think I was crying yet, but I was kind of hurt and pouting. And then he calls my sister Marilyn, the skinny one. He calls her over and he says, "Come on, Marilyn, you can do it. You're not fat like Kathy." Well, anyway, he put her on the limb, and I'm yelling, "It's not fair! It's not fair! It's not fair!" But he didn't care, and he just took the biggest pleasure out of watching me cry because I wanted to be the one flying on that limb. Well, he put my sister Marilyn on instead of me, and he got her on the limb, and the whole while he's turning around and he's looking at me, and he's like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh. You see, if you weren't so fat, maybe you could ride the limb." He took particular pleasure out of tormenting me. And Marilyn got on the limb, and she was all, woo-hoo, look at me, I'm on the limb and you not. And I just felt really bad. I felt really left out. I felt really insignificant. I felt really just bad because I was too fat to get on the limb, and I was too fat, and my brother was really clear about, me not being able to do it because I was inferior. I was fat. Well, they held the limb down, and my sister was on the limb. She couldn't wait to take off and enjoy that ride. Well, honey, when they let go of that limb, my sister went flying up in the air, but she did not come down on the tree. She went flying up in the air. She wasn't riding the limb, she was riding the wind. Honey, she took off in the air. She went flying high and landed somewhere in the field behind our house. Oh, goodness. She just had herself slingshotted and just flew. And my brother, there was a lot of screaming, and they were hollering, "Oh, hurry, go get her! I hope she's okay." And they went and they picked her up, and of course, at this point, Marilyn was all upset. She was all crying, "Why'd y'all put me over that tree?" Oh my God, I'm hurting! Screaming and hollering because she was hurt. And they picked her up and they carried her inside, and I thought they were going to have to take her to the hospital because something was broke or something. Well, nothing was broke. When they got her inside, my brother was very, very um, upset about what happened. But not as upset as my mama. My mama really lit into him. And he got into a lot of trouble. And I know y'all are thinking I'm terrible for giggling like this. But it's just such a sweet vindication because he was so mean to me, and he made me feel so bad because I was so fat and I couldn't do it. And he gave the pleasure of the ride to my sister Marilyn, who was the skinny one and who always got favored over me. And that in that particular instance, that was one time where it was okay to be too fat for that. Because I was saved that day because of it. Anyway, my brother got into a lot of trouble, and it didn't make him be any nicer to me after a while because once that wore off, he was just as mean as he ever was to me. But anyway, that's just the way brothers are. But that's my story for the day, and I sure hope you enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite memories. Of course, if my sister's watching this, and she probably ain't, she never watches any of my videos. But anyway, she's watching this, she's probably thinking it ain't one of my favorite memories. But that's okay. It is mine. And I sure hope you enjoy your weekend, everybody. I hope I hear one of these days I'm gonna see a video from somebody else.